I'm Marielena Giassi, and this is Currents. It's a new day, but the same story with the contraception mandate.
They raised our expectations. They gave us nothing in the end. They've just put some salt in the wounds.
Plus, prayer and suffering on the World Day of the Sick.
I feel like I have a lot to give the world and, people. And sometimes I'm challenged physically, and it's an obstacle.
And One Queen School is a model in diversity.
We are a Catholic school, and the Catholic faith is really important, but everyone is welcome.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Liz Fabulous is on assignment. The dust has settled on Friday's news about a change to the controversial Health and Human Services contraception mandate. But as we hear from CNN's Jessica Yellen, concerns are far from being alleviated.
After a messy, bungled announcement, the president plays cleanup.
Let me repeat, these employers will not have to pay for or provide contraceptive services. But women who work at these institutions will have access to free contraceptive services, just like other women. Religious liberty will be protected, and a law that requires free preventive care will not discriminate against women.
The White House quickly sent out statements from liberal Catholics who opposed the first policy but are hailing the workaround. The Catholic Health Association says this resolution protects the religious liberty and conscience rights of Catholic institutions. E.J. Dionne, Washington Post columnist who helped kick up the firestorm over the policy to begin with, now writes, President Obama did today what he should have done at the very beginning. He honored the fact that religious groups, including the Catholic Church, had legitimate religious liberty claims. But the solution is stirring more outrage with conservative Catholics.
And it expresses an animus against the Catholic Church and other religions. And I think they made it worse today, quite frankly, because they raised our expectations. They gave us nothing in the end. They've just put some salt in the wounds.
According to the administration, the new rule takes the employer out of the equation. So women who work for religious institutions will still get contraception for free. But now their insurance company will have to provide it directly to the women at no charge. That way, the objecting religious institutions aren't paying for birth control. The administration insists none of this was about politics.
So we know that 99% of women across this country use contraception at some point in their lives.
But angry Catholics disagree.
Are we now told that we have to provide for abortion-inducing drugs to some employee if she decides that she wants it, and that we have to pay for it?
That report from CNN's Jessica Yellen. And after some deliberation on Friday, U.S. bishops released a new statement. The bishops say the new arrangement does not address their concerns. They say that contraception would still be a part of the coverage provided by religious organizations. They say the issue is not just one of religious concern, but moral concern. The bishops also say they were not consulted about Friday's announcement. They say it continues the unnecessary government intrusion into the internal governance of religious institutions. Meanwhile, individual bishops are also speaking out. In an article for the website Philly.com, Philadelphia Archbishop Charles Chaput says many Catholics are confused and angry, and that they should be. He calls the mandate belligerent, unnecessary, and deeply offensive to the content of Catholic belief. Chaput says anyone who says the mandate is a gaffe, ill-conceived, or a mistake is wrong. The Archbishop says it is not some happenstance policy because it has been too long in the making. Chaput says it's bad law, not merely bad, but dangerous and insulting. He says it needs to be withdrawn. Out west, another voice of opposition. In a strongly worded open letter to President Obama, Cardinal Roger Mahony of Los Angeles says the president's ill-placed focus should be frightening to all Americans. Mahony says the mandate is not just about women's services and who pays for them. The cardinal writes that he is outraged at what he calls the president's incredulous contortions to justify an untenable position. He says the announcement on Friday makes the matter far worse. And the National Right to Life Committee says the mandate is a slippery slope. The organization says the next step will be to require all health plans to cover abortion. They call it twisted logic to say that abortions will save the higher costs of prenatal care, childbirth, and caring for the baby. And on Friday, we spoke with Brooklyn Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio, who also alluded to the possibility of a government mandate to include abortion coverage in employee health plans. The full interview, along with links to other statements, is available on our website. Stay tuned. There's more currents ahead. At a time when healthcare is center stage, a day of prayer for the sick will take you to a special mass here in Brooklyn. Welcome back. Contraception is at the center of the latest healthcare controversy. Catholics have been joined by other groups in opposing a mandate requiring most religious organizations to cover contraception in their employee health plans. In a statement, the U.S. Catholic bishops say, among other things, that the mandate is not just about religious objections, but moral concerns as well. As the back and forth over the mandate continues, this weekend the Church celebrated the World Day of the Sick. John Paul II instituted the feast back in 1992 to coincide with the Feast of Our Lady of Lourdes. Many people claim to have undergone miraculous healings through the intercession of the Virgin Mary in Lourdes, France. People travel from all over the world in the hopes of having the same experience, and miracles and healing were on the minds of those who gathered for the feast this past Saturday at St. Simon and Jude Church in Gravesend.
In 20 years since the Church has declared a day of prayer for the sick, it has been always on the Feast of Our Lady of Lourdes. Lourdes is a place of great healing within the history of the Church, and so the Church uses this day to pray for all of the sick.
I have a very bad back, and forget it, a lot of things wrong with me. And thinking of my sister too. I hope she gets well, because she's very sick. He hears my prayers.
Jesus, who saved the world through his suffering and pain, can use our suffering and pain to do something good. He uses it to save us and to save the world. No suffering goes wasted in this world.
His homily was beautiful. Well, people go through suffering sometimes for many, many years. And with the power of faith, it should help them overcome it or endure it.
We come today to invoke the power of Jesus in the sacrament of the anointing of the sick. May the Lord in his love and mercy help you with the grace of the Holy Spirit. May the Lord who frees you from sin save you and raise you up. Oil is blessed on the Mass of Chrism, along with chrism and the oil of the catechumens. It is a very moving sacrament for the minister who ministers it, but also for those who receive it.
I was hoping to get the strength that I need to endure the things that I have to come up, challenges physically that I have, so that I could be a better mom, a better person, because I feel like I have a lot to give the world and, people. And sometimes I'm challenged physically, and it's an obstacle.
St. Paul says that we make up in our bodies what's lacking in the suffering of Christ. What could be lacking in his suffering? What's lacking is our participation. We have to be there with Christ to suffer. We have to be there to redeem the world, just as he did. We've got to use that suffering to remit our own sin and to help the Lord in the redemptive process, which is worldwide and through all the ages.
Well, I had some complications from previous surgeries with the brain tumors, and now I need to go on to do a few more surgeries. So this would be great if the anointing of the sick can actually get me to where I need to be without further surgeries. With my faith, it was almost like I wasn't alone the whole time with what I was facing, so the suffering wasn't heavy all on my own.
Many people, young and old, hoping their prayers will be answered. We will certainly keep them in our prayers. And stay tuned. There's more currents ahead. Another weekend and another Republican presidential caucus vote. We'll have that story and the rest of the day's headlines next. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Maria Elena Giassi. Coming up in just a bit, Many nationalities are on display at one Queens elementary school. We paid them a visit. But first, let's have a look at the day's headlines. Maine Republican voters have spoken, and this time it was Mitt Romney who came out on top in that state's GOP caucus. Romney took more than 39% of the vote, beating Texas Congressman Ron Paul by 3.5 percentage points. Rick Santorum and Newt Gingrich, the two Catholics vying for the Republican presidential nod, came in third and fourth, respectively. And at the Conservative Political Action Conference in Washington, Romney said his presidency would be a pro-life presidency. He said that on day one, he would reinstate the Mexico City policy, which prohibits tax money from paying for overseas abortions. Romney added that he would cut off funding for the United Nations Population Fund, which he says supports China's barbaric one-child policy. Meanwhile, Rick Santorum continued the onslaught against the Obama administration's contraception mandate. In an interview on CNN, State of the Union, Santorum said it's not right to compare the new rule to other government services.
Amtrak, which is a passenger rail service, is in many respects like funding a highway system that provides interstate transportation between the states, and something the federal government does, and it's it's in the Constitution to do so. It's very different than having the government mandate that you buy health insurance, or the government create a right, as we've seen just this week. When the government creates a right to health insurance, they create the right to be able to tell you how to exercise the provision of that insurance, as we saw with the Catholic Church. That's a very different thing.
Last week, Santorum was flying high after winning 3 primary states. Closer to home, a bill to legalize same-sex marriage has passed one hurdle in New Jersey. The state Senate there voted to approve a measure, the first time New Jersey legislators have done so. The 24-16 vote was close to a complete turnaround from 2 years ago, when the New Jersey Senate rejected a same-sex marriage bill by a vote of 20 against and only 14 in favor. It's not likely the legislation would get anywhere. Governor Chris Christie said he would veto such a measure if it reaches his desk. New Jersey's bishops have also spoken out against it. Christie, who is Catholic, says he would rather leave the issue in the hands of the voters. And while that New Jersey measure has a long way to go, in Washington state, a bill to legalize same-sex marriage was signed into law today. Governor Christy Gregory put pen to paper, the final step in the process there. Gregory, who is Catholic, had announced earlier this year that she was reversing her position and would now be supporting same-sex marriage. Washington state's bishops had released a statement calling on the citizens to uphold the traditional definition of marriage. Meanwhile, a sex abuse lawsuit against the Vatican is now history, after the lawyers in the case voluntarily withdrew the suit. The suit, filed by attorney Jeffrey Anderson, a man who is known for suing the church, named not only the Vatican, but Pope Benedict and 2 senior Vatican officials. An attorney for the Vatican says the lawsuit was a publicity stunt. It involved a Milwaukee priest who was accused of abusing around 200 boys at a school for the deaf from 1950 through 1974. The accused priest died in 1998. And from Ireland, another lawsuit against a broadcaster there, after a second priest says he was falsely labeled a child abuser on a television program. An archbishop who had admitted having a sexual relationship with a woman says state broadcaster RTE falsely reported that the relationship took place while the woman was underage. Archbishop Richard Burke had been serving as a missionary priest in Nigeria when he met the woman. RTE has already paid out what has been described as record libel damage to another priest after it broadcast a report accusing him of raping a woman and fathering her child. The broadcaster was forced to pay damages and issue an unqualified apology after a paternity test proved the priest was not the child's father. Back in this country, the Catholic League is speaking out against a controversial Grammy performance. Rapper Nicki Minaj started off her Sunday night by arriving on the red carpet with a man dressed as Pope. Things only got worse during Minaj's performance, which included a mock confessional skit, followed by a video depicting an exorcism. Minaj then appeared on stage with choir boys and monks. In a statement, the Catholic League detailed other vulgar displays and asked if Minaj was possessed. They also noted that the performance was no accident and that the Recording Academy was irresponsible in allowing it. We've linked the Catholic League's statement on our Twitter feed. Just look for us on Twitter at CurrentsNY. And while one rapper may have a phony pope in tow, the real McCoy was where he should have been, at the Vatican. Rome Reports has details of yesterday's Angelus prayer.
During Sunday's Angelus, the Pope made a special call to authorities in Syria. In light of numerous killings that have included children, the Pope called for peace, reconciliation, and dialogue in the country.
Invito tutti, e anzitutto le autorità politiche in Siria, a privilegiare la via del dialogo, della riconciliazione e dell'impegno per la pace. È urgente rispondere alle legittime aspirazioni delle diverse componenti della nazione, come pure agli auspici della comunità internazionale, preoccupata del bene comune dell'intera regione, dell'intera società e della regione.
For the second straight weekend, it snowed in Rome. Despite the snow and cold weather, thousands flocked to the Vatican. In fact, the Pope even joked about the weather.
A tutti auguro una buona domenica, una buona settimana. Prossima domenica senza neve. Auguri, buona domenica.
It will be a busy week for the Pope. He's planning on meeting cardinals from all over the world, as he names 22 new cardinals on Saturday, the 18th.
Stay tuned. There's more currents ahead. When we return, it's not the UN, but more than 67 nations come together in Queens.
We're having an international night here at the school, and we wanted to celebrate it in the way that's very unique to our school, and that is the international flavor.
Finally tonight, if we told you about a place that includes people whose origins lie in 67 different nations, the first place you may think of is the United Nations. But in fact, the place we are going to take you is an elementary school in Astoria, Queens. Immaculate Conception School includes children whose families come from 67 different nations. And last week, the school held a multicultural night to celebrate the diversity of the student body.
We're having an international night here at the school. It's one way of celebrating Catholic Schools Week, and we wanted to celebrate it in the way that's very unique to our school, and that is the international flavor of our school.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our first annual multicultural event.
We have children from many, many different ethnic backgrounds, even some religious backgrounds that are different than ours.
We are a Catholic school, and the Catholic faith is really important, but everyone is welcome.
Catholic, the very name Catholic means open to everyone. And we are open to everyone. We embrace all of humanity here because that's what Christ wants.
I think that people find it interesting and to experience new cultural things.
We decided to ask our families to share with us what's special about their culture. So as you look around the room, you can see that we have posters, family crests, recipes, all sorts of artwork from around the world.
I'm doing hieroglyphics from ancient Egypt. I think it's a good way to share my culture with all the people so they get to know me better and they get to know what I do better at home. And I also have food brought here so they can taste a little bit of my culture.
I'm serving Puerto Rican food. This is our typical plate from Puerto Rico, white rice and Spanish style beans and empanadas.
Cuban is ropa vieja. It's great. Different style of food, try it all around the world.
They're gonna grow up to be with so many other children from so many cultures, and they're going to learn to cherish that for the rest of their lives.
I'm from France and Spain.
Italian.
Mexico.
Now that we're in the same school, it's almost like we've become one family, one culture, and it's just nice. It's very nice.
You look at here, and there's people from all over, but there's no fear. We're not afraid of each other. We could have made them write an essay on diversity. But, you know, who's going to remember that essay? The kids are not, nobody is. But this, they will remember, and they'll always remember diversity is good. All these kids are affected by it. They're going to go out and be going to be very successful in their fields of work. Our hope is they bring what they see here to their fields of work.
That is all for this edition of Currents. Coming up tomorrow, love is in the air. It's Valentine's Day, and local couples come together to talk marriage. You don't want to miss it. Until then, be sure to visit us online at currentsny.net. We are also on Facebook and Twitter. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Maria Elena Giassi. Thank you for watching, and have a good night.